Alright, welcome everyone. I'm going to make a tutorial video today for the update for Prophesier. We've now moved on to the 6.0. So let's go and throw that on the chart here. Go to settings. Cool. So you should already have the prophets symbol, latest update. So we pushed that out a few days ago. And now we're pushing out the update for Prophesier. It looks different. So when you first load it on the chart, it's going to look like this, which is very different to how it used to look when you first loaded it. When you first loaded it in the previous one, the top here would be red, the bottom here would be green, and there'd be nothing on the chart for the most part. Right, now you've got RSI set by default. You can see it gets bold in particular areas, and you can see we've got this little table down here on the bottom right. So that'll all load on your chart by default when you first load it, moving forward. I think it's quite aesthetically pleasing, the way we set it up. It looks really cool on a dark background here, but if you were to apply a lighter background, so if I go light, right, you can still see it somewhat. However, you might want to go and change the colors, which you've got the ability to do, right? And the same down here with the symbol indicator. So on a wider background, they'll look not as nice straight off the bat, but you can quickly just change the colors to sort that out. So go back to dark, as that's what it's set up for by default. Cool, and we'll get into it. Alright, so we've got it on the chart, and we've got symbol on the chart as well at the moment. We've also got the second variation of symbol present down here as well, which is the volume delta. So if we go into the settings of this, we'll see a lot of new settings and stuff we can play with. But the first thing I want to draw your eyes to is this very top part here. So the use dark mode doesn't do anything. We're suggesting use dark mode, and then it's best viewed with this particular background color. So before we do anything, I'll show you this background color. It's called 1A, 1A, 1A. To achieve that, we right click somewhere on the chart, not the candles, but the actual chart. Go down to settings, go down to canvas. Where it says background, make sure that's solid. Go across here to this button. Find your plus, add a custom color. Click that. Write 1A, 1A, 1A here. It should take you to this color. You go add. Once it's added, it should arrive in this bottom section of colors here, which is called your color palette. Choose the color, the 1A, which is this one, and then go OK. And that should give you the color that I'm currently running as your background color. I think that makes this suite, the way it's set up at the moment, pop the nicest. It looks really good like that. It's not too dark. It's nowhere near too bright. So it's a good mix. So if you want to use that, you can. But you can also find your own, right? So if you want to use a light background, go ahead, do whatever you want. That's the whole point of the suite, is you can customize it to your own liking and your own suitability. But in the last few patches that we've had of the indicator suite, aesthetics hasn't been a focus, because when we made these indicators, what feels like 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now, TradingView had a lot of limits, right? So in the coding section of TradingView, it was nowhere near as good as it was today. And these indicators were made 5 years ago, so now we're adapting, and now we're rolling out aesthetically pleasing stuff. That it also gives you much more information, like this table down here. Alright, this is fantastic to be able to see this, which we'll go through and explain what it means in this video. So we go into the settings, right? So the very first part is just making sure your background color, making sure, but that's the one I'd recommend if you are using the color template that I've given you. That'll go best with it. So by default, RSI will be turned on, which is this line here. You can go and add the additionals. MFI is money flow index, which is RSI weighted by volume, if you're not aware. You can add that to the chart, which then creates this line. So this line here is nowhere near as aesthetically pleasing as the RSI one. However, if you do want it, you can use it, and you can change the color of that down here somewhere as well, right? Same again with our custom oscillator, which is more like stochastic. You'll see it's much more volatile in the way that it moves. If it loads, still loading here, you can see a little eye over here. So if you're never doing anything, or you're wondering what's going on, just always check for this the eye here. The logo should be moving. So this is the more squiggly one. This has been pretty good as well for momentum, so it's a good one to keep an eye on. And then you got the rest here, right? Pretty straightforward. So you've also got the now you've got colors available here, and that's for the RSI line itself. So we've got these thick edges, or this more bold section, and the more thin section, right? So the top two are for the thin section, and the bottom two are for the bold one. So if you wanted to go and make this chart maybe different, maybe you want the bullish to be green and you want bearish to be red, and then maybe your extended version section, you want that to be maybe the blue, so it draws your eyes to it. Right, so you can go ahead and achieve that if you want as well. Alright, so it's a good way to look at the chart like that. And just fit that to your own personal theme. Having the bold section is what we'll get to soon though. Alright, so we'll just leave it like that for now. We've now got the RSI on the chart as well as on the indicator down here. So when we first turn this on, the RSI divergence, it will plot the RSI divs down here for us on the actual indicator. But we first have to tick bull and bear divs, right? So you get to choose if you want to see them all, or maybe you only want to see the bull. So while in the bull market, I like to see bull divs, right? While in the bear market, I like to see bear divs. Now that might be counterintuitive because you're like, well, in a bull market, should you not want to pay attention to the bear divs for the reversals? So I pay more attention myself manually when it comes to reversals, where in a bull market, I might be complacent, but a bull div in a bull market is like rocket fuel. Right, so if we go and turn those on, we should have these on. It's loading at the moment. Taking a little longer than usual. Give it a moment. Why is that taking so long? I've been playing around and trying to break it tonight, and this is the first time it's taken this long. Maybe it's TradingView's end. There we go, they're loaded on the chart, right? So straight off the bat, when you first load them, they're going to be small like this, right? And they're going to have these colors, so blue for bull and grey for bear, and that just matches the color candles that I use, which is kind of like matching the rest of the theme here. So we're trying to go for like a real aesthetically pleasing look. And then we've also got the show on main chart. So what this one will do is actually show these divs up here on the chart. So we used to have to do that on Prophesier, sorry, on Prophet, the other indicator. Now it's actually directly part of Prophesier. So some people only have like the more entry-level TradingView accounts, and because of that, they have like a limited amount of indicators they can put on their chart. So we're trying to condense as much as we can into Prophesier. So it ticks a lot of the boxes, right? So we can now see that the divs are on the chart. Now you'll see here, earlier I was mentioning, hey, in a bull market I want to see bull divs. I don't actually want to see the bear divs. I'd rather manually pay attention to the RSI for that. So in this case, I've got the ability to have the bear divs if I want them, but you can see they're very common in an uptrend, right? Very common, and they don't always lead to any kind of result. However, the bull div is like rocket fuel. So there's something to pay attention to as well. You don't want to be constantly shaking out of positions because you're seeing these bear divs come in and maybe that emotionally hijacks you. You're like, oh, getting concerned about a bear div. But when you see a bull div, I think that's like a bull div in an uptrend. That means the RSI must have reset pretty well. You know, cross-reference, has there been an SFP recently? Have we swept some local lows recently? Etc. So something to pay attention to is that. We'll turn them both on again for now. We've also got this one here called Show Divergence Lines. So we had that before. We've just got a little bit of custom ability to this now as well. So that'll draw where it's diverged from, right? So you can't actually see the candle count. So when we want to see the candle count, it's this one here. So these will actually grow larger in size now and actually have text inside them. So we'll see that in a moment. There we go. So now we can see that how many candles back it's diverging from, right? So if you wanted to have the numbers there and not have the lines, or have the lines and not have the numbers, or maybe you don't have either. I personally recommend only using the lines as training wheels. I don't get them all, and sometimes it'll go through RSI to achieve the divergence. And in my rule book, that's like not a good thing. However, there are no rules to technical analysis. You just use data and to make choices, right? We've also got the show larger divs, which is a previous one, which means when you have like more divs in a row, they'll get larger. We've also got the show confluent. This is the golden pepes. This means multiple indicators are all diverging at once, and they'll show on the chart down here. And we can see it gets bigger here. So it's suggesting when it gets bigger like that, within a few candles, that means when it gets bigger, it means there's been two golden pepes within a few candles, which means the market's getting pretty volatile probably, or pretty exhausted. Doesn't always mean that the market's going to roll over or anything like that from a bear div like this, But it just means there's a heavy confluence, and it's gaining momentum as well, that the market's diverging. We also then have the ability to show the GP strength. So at the moment we can see they're just orange, but in a moment they'll end up with text inside them in the same way of the other one. When the text comes inside it, they'll grow in size, which we'll see in a second. And we also have the ability to put that on the main chart. So we can now put the Pepes on the main chart as well, all through Prophesier. We'll just let that load. There we go. Cool. So we can see that like the golden Pepe level 6, which is a great heads up that the market is exhausted, has now level 6 in it. However, by default, the 6s have a different color, right? So they're pink by default, where the golden Pepes are golden. Alright, so we go back down to where were we? Here. You might want to turn off these on the main chart, right? And maybe you want to turn off the GP strength. So you just get these small little labels on the chart up here. But maybe you want the strength on the RSI down here or something like that. So we can go turn that off the chart. We've got just our golden Pepes on the chart itself. They're small labels. They're kind of like more of a visual thing. But then the information can be down here, for instance. So that's a nice way to look at it. When it comes to these divergence lines, I highly recommend you just learn how to see divergence yourself. They're training wheels, and they're not always accurate, and they miss divergences sometimes as well. Right? These indicators, you can never get it perfect, the way that coding the stuff works. So sometimes some divergences won't be picked up. I highly recommend you get comfortable with learning how to read divergence. Right? So if we go and use this tool here, the disjoint channel. If price is doing this, and RSI is doing this, you know, that's diverging. One's going this way, and one's going this way. It's as simple as all it is. And then the bear divs will always be above the RSI, and the bull divs will always be below RSI. A hidden bull div, which the indicator doesn't point out, are very strong when you know when to look for them or how to look for them. And same with the hidden bears, right? But when it comes to this, I definitely highly recommend getting comfortable with learning how to read divergence yourself, either through YouTube content online, maybe there's some tutorials. There's great cheat sheets online as well. If you went to Google and searched, we could just search like a divergence cheat sheet, RSI divergence cheat sheet, something like that. You can learn that way. You could even ask like ChatGPT or Grok or something like that and be like, create a basic tutorial for me to learn divergence and run me through it. You could even then send it screenshots of you drawing the divergence in and ask if it's accurate. It should have the ability to do that. I haven't tested that, but it's one way you could do. If you did want to get very good at it though, I've got an RSI masterclass, which will hone in right on how to read the RSI in total, but also getting really good at reading divergences as well. So we go back into this. I usually just have the golden Pepe level 6s on my charts for the most part. I'm more interested in these kind of moments than I am the golden Pepes these days. They're still very good. And it's good to see that market wide. So in the Discord you get those alerts come through, and when there's like good 50 to 100 come through all at once, you know, on maybe on a higher time frame, that's quite insightful, right? So I use them more so in that way these days, because I guess my trading's become very particular. When we made these 5 years ago, we were trying to automate as much as we could, and we did a pretty good job of that. So these days I'd be only looking for like level 6s on my chart. I only want to see the 6s. I would never want to see the RSI strength anymore. I'm looking for small labels. Cool. When it comes to the RSI strength, somewhere between like 3, the number 3, and like 20 is the prime sweet spot, right? Anything above that, it means that it's more like non-local divergence, and yeah, that's like the sweet spot. Cool. Then we have the ability to change the colors of the divs. So maybe you want to have the sweet spot between like 14 and 30, this area. Maybe you want to have them as like green, maybe. And then maybe have these ones here as blue. And then maybe you have these ones here as red. And these ones here as grey. So you're kind of having like a bit of a color theme going on. That when you see a red one, you pay a little bit more attention than when you see a grey one. Alright, that could be one way of looking at it. So it's one way of filtering that information out. Oh, you can also highlight the divs as well, if you weren't aware. and that information is trackable. You can do some back testing on that if you want, and you can just pay attention. All right, these values. So when you see a good divergence, what does the value look like? So if you do some back testing, like we've got divergence here, for instance, that led to nothing. See what it says, 11.88 diff, and the percentage diff is 15.38. So that's massive. That's high numbers. Right, if we go and look at the one that reversed the market down here, 0.96, 2.7%. Right, so low. Up here, 0.85, 1%. So this put a brakes on the market. This put a rocket booster on the market. Well, that makes sense because we're in an uptrend. Right, so you can get familiar with that information and start paying attention to them. Yeah. So this one here that just came in, that was a lower one. Right, if we highlight that. So that's one thing to pay attention to as well. Cool. You've got the ability to change the size of all these labels as well. So, for instance, the golden Pepe, the usual one, I've got that as tiny at the moment. We can go and make that large if we wanted to. Or maybe we'll make that medium and make when there's 2 in a row, we go large like that. You got lots of customized ability here as well. Right, and if we go down further, we can actually change those label types as well. So at the moment, we've got your typical label that we've used for the last 5 years, and that's kind of like this arrow square thing. But you can also get the ability to change that if you want to use something fresh or different to create your own look. Right, so this one here is making them all diamonds. All the divergences are diamonds now. Alright, you can even change that to like a circle if you wanted to. Gives you a bit more like customization. You can also do the same thing for your golden Pepe. So maybe you want your golden Pepes to be diamonds and your divergences to be your labels or something like that. Alright, just usability, customization. A way to discern between the different labels as well. So if you see like a diamond come in, you know that's different to the divs. You don't just get, like, depends on your color setup, I guess. If you've got a very different, like red into green into pink, you know, you can understand all the differences. But by default, that's just that blue theme that we started with. So we'll come back up to here. You get the ability to change all that. So this was a request by someone in Discord last week, and that was the div line thickness. So we'll go to the div line back on, which is this one. And that's the line that shows you where the div is on the actual RSI. So this one up here shows show divergence lines. You have the ability to change that here. So if you want that thickness to be greater so you can see it easier, this will make it thicker. And then we also have the ability to change like dotted or dashed. Right, so it doesn't become this like eyesore on the chart when you've got these lines going everywhere. So the color of these lines are going to reflect the color of the div that it came from. So for instance, this one here or this one here is reflecting on these. So if we go and change those to say orange here, this will then turn to orange in a moment. So you have control over the line color as well, but it'll just match the div that it came from. So you can just see which div came from where, easy with that visual look there. You can change the other oscillators that are available, so the MFI and the custom, which we turned on earlier. This is where you have the ability to change those. And you can also plot the different divergences as well if you want those. Right, I tend to not use these and just rely on maybe more so the golden Pepes. However, some divergences like MACD, when they come in, usually, like, it's worth paying attention to MACD divergence, I've learned. So the blue one, I think, is the MACD. There's this one here. Alright, so when I see this one, I'm like, okay, they're not very common. So when I do see them, I'm like, okay, well, I'll cross-reference the rest of the information that's available to me on that chart. But you can have all of those on the chart here still as well. So we haven't taken them away. The colors for those here. So all of these have their own colors here. So you can make it nice and pretty if you want. Div colors, divergence symbol we touched on. This is your golden Pepe color. This is your peak divergence color. So you can, for instance, go and make that say red, and this pink will become red. Cool. And then if you've got a golden Pepe or a level 6 Pepe flashing, like it hasn't locked in yet, that's this value here. So if you maybe make that like 50, when there's a golden Pepe about to form, it'll be like hard to see, but it'll just be a bit of a heads up that it's possible to lock in on this candle if this candle closes where it is. Alright. Now you've got this next section here. So before I do that, I'm going to reset this to default so we can see the chart cleaner. This section is a part of my RSI masterclass. I spent the last few years getting really knowledge with RSI, and these zones here will be a reflection of that for yourself. Bit of alpha in this as well, and hopefully it helps you guys. So you can see at the moment when we look at the RSI that we've got these different levels here, right? So we can see these two sections here. So we'll call this a section, which is between 60 and 50, and then 50 and 40. That section here all shares the same color, right? So if we go back into the indicator and go to the settings for that, down the bottom here, where is it? Here. That's going to be referred to as the stagnant fill, right? So if we go and max it up a wee bit, we're going to see this middle area here pop. We'll just take a second to load, but we should see this pop. Right, so if we went to turn the rest down, even off per se, and we only focused on this, and then we actually hide the chart and we look purely at the RSI here. So let's train our eyes. So I want to show you that when price is doing this within this colored zone here, that the market is stagnant and it's quite likely you're going to get chopped to bits. Right, so we'll go and draw vertical lines on the chart based on those areas here, because I've got no idea what the chart's done, but I can just purely look at the RSI and training my eyes on that. So from say here to like here, which we can go and throw that above the chart here as well. That's an area of concern, right? The RSI is doing fuck all between there and there. You could even go like to about there even, because that pattern doesn't really change until about here. But what we could do is pay attention to those points where it does go outside that area. Alright, so we'll show you that here. So we want to pay attention to this point on the chart. So when we go back, we want to pay attention to that moment. We want to pay attention to this moment. That moment here. Then maybe over here we'll look for one. So here. That's pretty much it. Maybe that one over there as well. So now we'll go and look at the chart. And what happened in these moments? Look at this. Just nasty. It's just nasty. Now what are these moments here? Well, this is a sweep of the low. Alright. This one here was also a sweep of the low. And then this was a sweep of the high. So if we're in a market that's just chopping and there's no real volatility and it's just bouncing between a very small range, we'll confirm that by using the stagnant area. Is RSI just bouncing between 60 and 40 down here? If so, if that's what's happening, then assume it's going to continue happening for a while until proven otherwise. And when the proven otherwise will be like a clean breakdown of the range that you're stuck in, or a clean break up of the range that you're stuck in. Right? So until then, whenever RSI goes below the stagnant area or above the stagnant area, you'll be looking for reversal signs. So instead of being like, okay, we're going to break down from this moment here, actually look for the opposite and be like, well, has there been a sweep of liquidity? Is there like local divergence? Maybe on lower time frames is a divergence right here. And then you're looking to go back to the range high. So if you're an intraday time frame trader, or you're just someone scalping, or maybe you're using those tools on the exchange that exist these days, and that's like bot orders or range orders that you can do. I know Binance and BingX both offer that, and you can just set a buy down here and a sell up here, and it will just keep buying and selling that range while it bounces through it, right? And then you could turn that off once it actually breaks down the RSI here, and then actually moves and expands away from that tight range that it got stuck in, right? So you can utilize it in that fashion. But you can see here that the stagnant the zone really helps train your eyes where to look, because if the RSI has been in there for a while now, it's probably going to continue to be in there until you have some kind of drastic move, right? So that's just one of the zones. Let's go to another one. We'll turn this one down now. Let's pay attention to the bullish. Right, so we'll turn the bullish zone up. So this is going to be different to what you're used to. Most RSI's default, is the 70 level and the 30 level, which is here. What this done is actually turned you into a different zone, right? So this has got the 80 and the 40 instead of the 70 and the 30. So it trains your eyes to be paying attention to this area in particular. So let's go to the right here and let's apply that same knowledge. Looking for divergence above the band here. If divergence arrives above the band here, right, pay attention. Do we have liquidity sweeps? Do we have low volume? Like, what's going on here? Let's build a narrative, right? Because this is suggesting that it's really, really overextended. We then see the RSI thickness increase, which is also telling us to start looking for divergence, right? So we see the market start to get pretty overextended here. So when you have this moment, you'll probably see a local div and a pullback. And then following that, you'll have another div come in, and that's usually a top for the foreseeable future, if this kind of setup comes in. So we go sideways, it refuses to dump twice here on volume, and then the market expands up. Alright, but then when it fully corrects here, it comes down not to the 30 that everyone's looking at, it comes down to the 40. So it diverges. This is a really small div here below the bullish band here that we've got. So we'll set you up for easy spotting divergence. So again, looking up here, it just pops above the bullish band, diverges below it, market puts the top in for the foreseeable future. So it's kind of like, this is the moment, if you see this set up here, this is the moment you start looking for reaccumulation behavior because you're in an uptrend, or if you're in a downtrend, it would be redistributional behavior, and then you'd be looking for the market to move into the stagnant, right, which is this area, until proven otherwise, because that's what the market will usually do after that, which is phase B of Wyckoff, right? So this kind of stuff here, well, if you understand Wyckoff, you can start to put the information here into different phases. So it makes life really easy. I'm looking for these. So we can go on, again, we're going to do the same thing, but for bears now. So we'll turn that down and go put the bear up. So if we're in a downtrend, where's a downtrend? Been a while, let's go to the actual downtrend over here. Right. So the overextended part here is at the level 20 and not 30 like usual, right? And then at the above point here, so this is actually here at 60 instead of 70 like usual. So it's suggesting any divs or hidden divs in this area here, this is no good. You should be looking for continuation to the downside. Any bull divs that are coming in from here, this is your expect stagnant after that, right? You can see it as plain as day. So phase A on Wyckoff, phase B on Wyckoff, and then we get the phase C spring. In this case here, it's a redistribution. Sign of strength, sign of LPS, and then we then have the sign of strength. But this is a bearish strength, so it'll be actually referred to as sign of weakness. But you can see these zones and the logic and how they work. So if you know the environment that you're in, so this is obviously you're in a downtrend, then just pay attention to these extremities of this, and they will give you incredible setups, or they'll tell you when to pay attention to the market if you're not someone who stalks it all day. But if you're trying to do that in an uptrend, well, these are very overextended, right? This here is an extreme moment, but it's more so up here that you'd be interested in trying to like look to take profit or short or hedge or whatever. So the bearish settings in a bullish market don't help. And then we also have the volatile. So if we go to, where are they hiding? Here. We turn this down. We've got the, where is it? Oh, we're missing one, but that's okay. So volatile is just between 80 and 20, which just means the entire thing is full. And that means that the market has been quite erratic. So if we went to like current price action on Bitcoin and looked at this moment here, this is getting quite erratic. So what does the indicator say here? So stagnant, erratic, right? It's not that erratic though, because it's just come down to 40 and reset, and we're in an uptrend. So this is your typical bullish behavior. That's an RSI reset here, and you see the market reverses from that point onwards. Maybe it needs to be more erratic. So we saw that price action back in before this range that we're in. Where is it? This point here, maybe on a higher time frame, but this point here, where the market was just going wacky. We check the daily in this range. Now even here it wasn't there. You have to go to like a lower time frame. So I guess that's why it's not on there. With the conversation I probably had with Hazer was that it's not worth having in, so therefore we're not having it in. You've then got the overbought and oversold area, so these were your typical zones from the last Prophesier version. So we can go and turn those up, and that's going to be between 20 and 30 and 70 and 80, right? So just kind of gives you a bit of a heads up on where to look for divergence. Is that loading? Or is that? Interesting, so that's not actually, I think that's actually working. We need to probably just get rid of that now moving forward. Or do we have to turn that on? No, that should be it. Okay, so these aren't working, so that's I just picked up a bug. This is one thing I missed earlier when I checked. Or I think we'll just get rid of this altogether before we push it out then. I don't mean I need it anymore. Once you understand this, this is no longer really relevant. You've also got the standard fill, so you can turn that up, which will be your 70 and 30. So if you want like RSI default, then that's the range that the RSI default works in. But I've found, based on the trend, you're better off using these fills and just being aware. Next we got the buy and sell. So I'll just actually go and make this all default, reset the default settings. We'll turn on buy and sell. So you've got the big, medium and small here, and then you've got the choice of like which combination do you want, which is a part of the previous version of Prophesier. However, we can now change those labels if we would like. So they're over in style, and we come down here to the big sell, big, medium, etc. small, and we can change these to whatever we like as well. So maybe we want to make these circles, for instance, or diamonds. Maybe we'll go diamonds for these. Alright, so we don't have to have those arrows anymore. So now we've got diamonds on the chart. And then you've also got the ability to go back to the color here and then change that transparency. So maybe you want them like a blue to match the color palette, maybe make them like 25%. Right, and now they can just sit in the background here as well. And then they should load in a moment. Okay to that. There we go. Right, so now you've got like buy and sell signals, which you can lock in. Like say for instance here, we can see the RSI is definitely getting quite low after coming from quite high. So it's kind of like a resetting in these kind of moments. Do we have like a liquidity sweep? Yes. Do we have a buy signal here? Well, that came in on this candle there. And then we also have this going thick. Alright, so there's a combination of events. We've also got the large volume. Alright, so it's suggesting this is going to be a bottom. It had a nice rally, got rejected up here, hidden bear div, I believe, from here to here, and then rolled over for the bull div from here to here. And then we get a buy signal following on this candle here. And then it does not a lot, right? It stays in the stagnant area on the RSI before coming down and putting in the low end. And this was a really obvious on the 4-hour time frame Wyckoff accumulation range, right? So you now got the choice to make those different shapes as well as change the transparency and color, which you were able to do previously, but it allows you to have more control over your theme, I guess. Cool. We've got the reversal zone. This is from the previous versions, right? We go and remove the drawing here. So you can see here that in this area here, it's suggesting look for confluence. Right, I say that in this area here, start looking for confluence. So in this particular area, it didn't reverse. These are strong trends. And they'll usually show up at like these key kind of moments here. So if you weren't already looking, it's saying, hey, maybe have a look. Right here, and then say here. So they're quite handy as another form of confluence. I haven't used these for quite a while. I've changed the way that I approach the market. However, they're good. I think they're good for a novice, someone learning. But you can see where that's come in here. It's really the div that followed that kind of put in like the breaks properly. So, and again here, it hasn't really led to much there. You do have different settings you can go into as well for these, right? But you can kind of see patterns. So a lot of people realize that they preempt the spring. So if we go to say here, it came in here, and then the spring comes in, or the bearish moment comes in, and then throws it that way, or maybe like down here in the low or something like that. This one here is reversal here, strong up. There's actually one here, there, and it front runs the spring or the UTAD, right? The up thrust after distribution. But they definitely add like a form of confluence. I haven't used them for a while. It doesn't hurt to have them on your chart, and you can get picky with the settings of those as well. So down here, the reversal zone, you can make them like more higher accuracy, but then there'll be less of them. And then you can also go and change the look back for these as well. So you can have a bit of a play around, right? So this one here's gone now, so therefore the accuracy is greater. So when you do see them, it's like, okay, maybe pay attention, right? Maybe pay attention, maybe pay attention. So they're great confluence, I think, when you've got the higher accuracy, more so than the one that's pretty frequent. It's another form of confluence, which is what we look for. We want to build narratives. Cool. What else we got down here? Layout colors, done that. We've done this. The custom oscillator buy and sell. I think, is that still working? I haven't used this kind of stuff for quite a while myself. It should just carry on from the previous version. That loading. Or do we have to have the custom oscillator on, maybe? We'll turn that on. Here we go. Yeah, okay, got the buy and sell. Cool. So these are signals based on that, right? Essentially, it's saying their exhaustion in those moments. So it could be like another form of confluence that you use. I personally haven't used these for a while, but they are there, and you do have control over that. Mayor multiples are here. These are all the alerts that you can do. So if you're unaware of how to use the alerts, you tick the ones that you want. Right, so maybe you want all of these to be an alert. You want to know about all this information on this time frame, right? So we're on BTC. Actually, we can't use those. We have to be on a particular ticker. Actually, no, it should work for because we are on Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have to be like the exact ticker, but is there a tooltip on that? Yeah, it has to be just USD pairs. Yeah, cool. So this should work fine. So if we want to add alerts, we choose the ones that we do want, right? Then we go OK. We don't do anything else other than that on the indicator. Then we go up to here and go Add Alert, and then we choose Condition Prophesier, right? And then we don't do anything else. We just go Create, right? You can change the notification style here if you want. So maybe you want the email, maybe you want a notification here or a sound. So you can change this section before you go create, right? But you don't need to do anything outside of that. So by ticking the ones that you do want is how you get alerts. And then you go into the alert section, choose the condition as Prophesier, and then go OK, create, right? I'll delete that later. I don't want that. Cool. And then you need to do that for each time frame that you use it on. So we're on the daily, we just did that for the daily. Now all those alerts will come through on the daily. We just repeat the process for the 4 hour or the weekly if we wanted to. Personally, I don't use these. I set my own custom alerts up. But these are handy. These are handy. I'll not take away from them. Inbuilt strategy. We got this as the Bollinger Band. This was requested to be added. So RSI in Bollinger. Alright. This could really be complemented by the zones. So for instance, if you're in the stagnant zone as well as you're going below the Bollinger Band here, that could be like a real key moment while you're also below range like that. So that could be a really clean strategy. I can see that already. Alright, and over here as well. So that could be quite a clean strategy that you could use and implement it into the indicator. I'll go back down to where that was. Here, right. And you've also got additional information if you want. Right, makes it more obvious. The midpoint of the Bollinger Band, and also that. So that's one way you could utilize it. Right, it's definitely one of the strategies people use. When I backtested it, that was a good strategy. Then you've also got more alerts, and just go through that same process. So what you've got ticked when you go and create an alert like this, and then choose Prophesier as your condition. That's how the alerts get locked in. Now we've got the table, so we'll cover this table. So I'll just go reset to default, reset settings, just make sure we're all back to normal. Give it a moment, go OK. Cool. Alright, now we've got this table down here, which is down here on the... we can choose the different colors available. So at the moment, it'll flash blue, it'll stay blue, when it's reaching certain criteria, right? So overbought or oversold. So in this case here, we're starting to see these blue kicking in on these higher time frames. So C stands for your current time frame. So maybe you'll be on the 1 second, or maybe you'll be on the 5 minute, or maybe you'll be on like the 8 hour or the 12 hour, right? So they're not all listed over here. So the current allows you to see your current time frame instead of having to pay attention to the level on the right over here. You can just see them all at once. And the point of this is kind of like a visual indicator. So if your higher time frames are all quite blue, then that means you've got a bit of strength in the market, right? If you were blue and now you're starting to lose blue, so if you were aware yesterday a lot of these were blue and then today they're not so blue, that likely means you're looking for divergence, right? That means that it made a high on the RSI up here and then it's come down lower. So if RSI then goes down lower, that means we need to make sure the next high is either higher than, or if it's lower than and locks in like that is here, that's a bear div, right? And we're starting to lose the higher RSI values that we previously had. Right, so you've also got C.RSI and P.RSI. Now what C stands for is current, in the same way that it stands for current. So this is your current time frame. This is the current RSI value. So right now on the time frame, we're on the daily right now, and price is doing its thing, a bit of a pullback at the moment. We can see here on the value, if we were to use this tool here, at that point roughly we're about 65, 64. So I can't eyeball that perfectly, right? And if I try and use this arrow here, like I'm in my mid 30s now, so my eyes aren't as clean, like sharp as they were like 10 years ago. Around there, I'm guessing somewhere around here if I was to do this manually, and this is how I used to do it. It's a pain in the butt. So what this does, it tells you exactly what it is right now, 65, but also on the one day at 65. And it tells you what the last value locked in was, which is 69. So we can see that it's actually dropped, right? So if you just had current value, that would be some information. But if you didn't know what the previous value was, you don't know if you're actually losing momentum or gaining momentum across these time frames like this. So because we're looking at price right now, well, we can see that RSI is probably dropping because price is dropping. So that would make sense that this is lower than this. But then we can see that across all time frames. So because this was 70 and then this was 66, we are losing momentum. This was 66 and this is 64, we are losing momentum, right? Even on the higher time frames, there's a drop in value there. So it's immediate information, which is fantastic. If you get comfortable with RSI, this information is very powerful. You've also got the ability to change the time frame, so maybe you don't want the preset time frames that I've picked for you. You can change them to whatever you want. Every single time frame will be available to you. And set those up however you like. Maybe you want it so the higher time frames here and the lower time frames are here, so you can change the order, for instance. You've also got the ability to change the location of this. So if you don't want it in the bottom right corner, that's our default, but you have the ability to change this wherever you want. Maybe you want to be, maybe you want it right here in the middle somewhere. Right? I don't think that's a good idea, but maybe you do. Alright. You got the choice of every part of the chart in this section here. Alright, so within this box, the Prophesier box, you can place it anywhere inside that using this section here. Alright, you got the tooltips and color legend as well from the previous setup. And then over here we've got the rest. So the upper band, these lines here are to do with this line, these dashed lines that we see here. So these, I think, make the awareness of the importance of each of these different levels, brings it to your attention. I've made the middle line a bit brighter, along with the top and the bottom in this case here, and then the other ones not as much. You can change this however you like, and you've also got the ability to change those values too. So maybe you want 85, maybe you don't want the 80 there. Right, so maybe you want a threshold that you've worked out as what you want. So you have the ability to change those as well. If you don't want the table, you can turn the table off through this point here. So if you don't want that table, you can turn it off. Or maybe you run two different Prophesiers. Right, so if you're running two different Prophesiers, maybe you don't want the table twice. So you can turn them off on one of them. So we can go ahead and like maybe make this go up to here. So maybe you have one running RSI, and then maybe you have like the custom one with MFI on the other one, right? And then maybe you only have the table on this one and not this one, etc. It's got all that ability to do whatever you like. So I'll delete this one, go back to this one. The RSI here is the actual RSI line here. Right, so we can go and turn this off. That turns the whole line off here. And then we've also got the second one. So this turns off the thickness. So we got the thick part here. If you don't want that information, you can turn that off and it'll go away. So now you've got your default RSI line, and that will change color based on RSI. Right. Cool. Go over here. Actually, I believe it's the color is changing, so we haven't actually touched on that. We touched on the thickness, and that's kind of like your pay attention moment. So I'm just gonna put that thickness back on, which is here. You can make it like this is the thickest, but maybe you don't want it so thick. Okay, so you got that ability to change that here as well. However you want to set it up, or maybe you want it nice and thin, and then maybe nice and thick. There, right? So it becomes even more obvious. So the RSI is changing colors here, as we can see. Right, it's going from this teal color, this grey color, whatever that is, to this more bluey color down the bottom here. Right, and what that is the DMI indicator. So if you've not heard of that, we'll go and open that up here. It's called Directional Movement Index. So what I've done is I've incorporated that into the RSI, this is what it normally looks like, right? It's a bit spaghetti, a lot going on there. If you turn off the ADX and just pay attention to this, the DI, this is what's actually changing the color of the RSI. So we go and blow this up, we can see here, whenever it crosses, the color will change. So that's here, it crosses here, crosses here, alright, crosses here, and then crosses here, stays like this for a while, and then crosses here again, crosses here, right. So DMI is about strength. So what it's suggesting is when the DMI is plus, or when the color changes to the upside here, and maybe you reclaim the 50 after putting in maybe like a hidden pull div, that's just further confluence, right? So if you're changing strength and you're reclaiming, say, the 50 here, while in an uptrend, maybe that's strong continuational insight, because the DMI indicator is also suggesting that. And then the same thing with the weakness, right? So if you see that price is like flagging, maybe diverging, if there's divergence, maybe something the high here, starting to look pretty weak. And then we see this also change color before it even loses the 50. So it's suggesting a weakness is arriving, right? The DMI is like, hey, right now here, that the price is weak, and then it's probably going to lose momentum, and then it just completely bleeds out, right? And then it changes color again here for a second, and doesn't really change color again until like after this spring that comes in. So it's hugely insightful in that moment to maybe hold your shorts or hold your hedges or whatever it may have been. So having that color indication there is strong. Go back into that. So you've got the ability to change those colors here, right? So your normal, you got the two different colors. So maybe you want to change that to red and maybe change this to green, right? Actually, not red and green. It's really the other way around. That's the way I'd look at it. I'd maybe make that green in this case and go red in that case. That makes sense. So when it goes green, that means that we've got strength, right? And if the RSI is above 50 and you've got hidden bullish divs or something coming in, you should trust that continuational more so, right? You should trust that continuational more so. So you got more information available to you without having to go and learn an entirely new indicator and pay attention to the squiggly bullshit down here. You're now able to just visually see it on the RSI. So if you get comfortable with that, the thickness, the zones and stuff like that, you guys are gonna level up hard. This is great, right? Which is awesome. Yeah, here we are 5 years later, still bringing out more content without charging anything extra, right? So awesome to those first person people who jumped in and got on board. I think that's pretty much everything for the changes for now. for the most part, I think that's it. So we might have removed 1 or 2 features as well, which I believe would have been like the additional buy section for the Bitcoin spot, and you had to load a second Prophesier to be able to load that, so that looks like it's been removed, which is fine. I don't think anyone was using that anymore. Cool. Well, I think that's it pretty much. I'll keep the old video available too, because that had some good information in it as well, and it also had the little mini masterclass towards the end of it on how to utilize the indicators. But I think you guys are going to really appreciate this update. Yeah, just to load out the default. Go reset. Right, let that load. I think that looks beautiful. You got so much information just with a basic RSI indicator. Right, to the untrained eye, this just looks like RSI, but we have color changing, we have thickness, we have zones. Right. Once you get familiar with these, you guys are going to start really increasing your accuracy and knowing when and when not to trade. Right. And that's all relative to the time frame as well. So we jumped down like the 15-minute, for instance, and paid attention here. We can see the price is getting quite volatile in these moments, and then we see stagnancy here. So once the RSI loads, for instance, we just kind of like see that reflection of that information. So hella stagnant, and then you also have that above the zone here moment, which happens to be the moment it takes liquidity, right? And then comes down for a full reset to the bottom of the stagnant zone. So get familiar with the stuff. It's all applicable to each time frame. It's all relative to each time frame. And slay, guys. Like this is the bull run. We're in it. Make the most of it. Cool. Right. I'll wrap this up and stop babbling, and we'll get it out to you. Cheers.